you've gone from leading transformation in huge organisations and helping agencies embrace change. What was your moment when you've woke up, or over a glass of wine or a cup of tea, and you've had an experience that's made you realise, right, this is actually broken, and I need to fix how the agency or how the business actually handles change for their team? Because it's a huge thing. What was your pivotal moment that made you feel like that?
Okay, I think accumulation of many, many moments here. But when I step back and think about change, the word that everyone's talking about right now, I don't think we can get through a meeting without mentioning the word change, right? And we want it fast and we want it quick. When we reflect on change, in reality, I believe that what change does really is shine a spotlight on the stuff that's already wobbly. The things that we usually know about, maybe the things that we are blissfully ignorant about, or maybe willfully ignorant about. That might be true leadership alignment. It might be courageous conversations. It might be some consequences too, because sometimes we're not that good at that in agency land. And we start maybe in the wrong place. So we make a decision to change and we focus on that. We focus on what we want it to be and we get really caught up in it. And we don't start from what we really are. And that's a challenge, because what we really are, there's usually some really good stuff in that. That's our strengths. And there's also these things maybe that have always held us back, that we're still ignoring, the things that really matter to our people and things that really matter to making us successful at change. And we get really linear focused on what we want to be, but what we don't do is focus on what we really are. And then that gap gets really, really big. So what I really believe is we have to start with who we are. We don't want to overthink it too much, but we have to start with the reality of who we are, because the reality of who we are is how people experience our organisation every day. And our experiences drive our belief, and our belief drives our behaviours, right? So we have to have a bit of a reality check, be honest, if you will. And we don't always do that. And that's really important that we do.
Yeah, that's beliefs and behaviours, the old bat triangle, beliefs, behaviours and techniques. I love it. And really what you're describing there, I think, is agencies have this core culture that they've got through the business. They've often got a vision of where they want to get to. And in today's environment, it feels there's hyper change everywhere, right? You know, the big one that's out there, all the time. You can't get off a tube or TV, whatever. AI seems to be like disrupting everything. There's a weekly new platform springing up. Throw in a bit of Gen Z who want to rewrite workplace rules of how they work and when they work. You've got your clients demanding agencies instantly pivot and want more for less. Hey, who doesn't? We're always going to ask that. So within all of that, like your core vision, your culture, but all these things going on, which I think we're all experiencing. I know I am. How do you, as Gemma and your business, how do you really help agencies and business keep to their core vision and their culture that they've created and the people? How do you help them stay agile? How do you make sure they're still responsive to these needs without really losing that core identity? Because I've seen a lot of things, the change happens, but then all these great things, as you said, really start to unwind. How do you help them do that, Gemma? I think that's really important.
It is. I mean, I think, what we do at Pivot Forward is that sort of the hard, messy, but really critical stuff that creates and sustains change, right? And that is the messy stuff that all of us really want to often speed through. I've never met a change project where we want to go slow, right? We always want it done next to now. We always want more. At speed, absolutely. We've done it for a while now, and it can actually be quite fun. We love this stuff. We love change. We know agency world inside out. And I think it's the perfect scenario, if you like, or the perfect environment where we can do change a little bit differently, particularly if we're in a smaller organisation, because we can be more human. It's quite popular to say it right now. And I think as well, in this change landscape at the moment, you can't leave your house, you can't switch on LinkedIn without hearing this need for speed, these kind of rage baity type headlines. There's all this change around. And I operate in this landscape, and I don't want to do myself out of a job and clients, but I also think we need to get a bit real and ground ourselves in the reality of that. And for me, again, when I look at what we need to do what you just talked about there, which is to be agile and responsive, to make our people believe, we have to do the same things that people first leaders have always needed to do. Things that we've been talking about for a while now. Be really human first. And for me, there's real comfort in that. We have to slow down. Like, people ask what's the best advice I can give right now, and that is what feels like a challenge and feels impossible, I think, to leaders, and that is truly to pause, to take a moment and to slow down, and to do that as much as you can, maybe once a month, and as a leadership team too, to do it together, to spend some time thinking together. That's so important, because we have to pause and slow down and not get caught up in the hype and what everybody else is doing. We have to find a way through that's really authentic to us as individuals and authentic to us as an organisation. And so first, we need to slow down, and we need to work out in our organisation what works, how things get done, and then also what are the things that we can change? What are the things that we need to change? And pick one of those things. It might be how we make decisions and we remove some levels of bureaucracy. It might be how we stay true to a particular core value. The most important value that I think is so important right now when it comes to everything that you just said, commercial outcomes, agility, productivity, all of that stuff, is the value, and every organisation has a value around it. Usually it might be integrity, it might be honesty, but what it comes back to me is feedback, right? A feedback culture. A way of sharing performance feedback, a way of being honest, having courageous conversations. If you as an organisation can focus on that one thing, productive conflict at a leadership level, productive conflict and conversation at a middle level, sharing feedback, working through it together, good and bad, I think that would be a huge differentiator. Just one thing, pick one thing that you want to focus on as an organisation. And I suspect that will get you much further than doing many of these things and then getting focused on change and scariness and agility and all these things. Pick one thing that can change something every day for everyone, and that will ripple up.
That's really interesting. I think the whole thing like this, we're designed now to do things fast. You know, we want to build high-performing teams. I think I use that word quite a lot in my business. We need a high-performing team. We want to do things fast. That concept of actually just pausing and slowing down will feel quite alien for some leaders. I do try to do it and just take stock of where we are and say, well, what should we do? But if we've built the business like on those, trying to build those high-performing teams, and we do things at speed with agility, for us saying, okay, we're going to pause and do this, we then need to really look at how do we change that mindset across the business? And you mentioned about that human first. How do you then get the rest of your team and really put people at the center of this change? Like in practice, how does that really work in practice? Because we're used to working at these levels. We've got to put the people then and be human first at the center of this change. But what does it look like in practice, especially when the pressure's still on by clients and by KPIs and all those type of things? So like, how does it really work, Gemma? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And again, I think, so you talked a little bit about the how there, right? We're quite good in agency land at talking about the why and talking about what we're looking to achieve, but we don't spend a great deal of time on the how. And that's the work that we do, which is how you get to the holy grail of things like trust and psychological safety, all those things that we talk about when we talk about human first culture. The how realistically comes down to how you as a leadership team are going to show up in the moments that matter most, like a set of team agreements. How are you going to make decisions? How are you going to communicate? How are you going to change energy, change and sustain energy? How are you going to measure progress? So we just talked about that. That's so important for a team. Particularly now, like progress can become your fuel and can become your energy, and progress can be stopping, right? It's not just about achieving that client deliverable. Progress can be, this year we're going to stop as a business a little bit more and take stock. Progress, we're going to have more courageous conversations. Progress is like, it's not just about getting to the outcome. So the realistic part of how you do that is thinking about things a little bit differently and reframing what results might look like and outcomes might look like, and then putting people at the center of it. So again, in the midst of all of this change and all of this news and all of this speed, I think our tendency as leaders, as people first, caring people, is to want to protect our people.
Yeah,
Right. We also have an obligation as that, as leaders. You know, we are paid the big bucks to manage, to lead, to provide all of that inspiration, to control the workload, all of that good stuff. And I think in this environment right now, maybe there's a tendency to over-index on that a little bit and to step into a really protectionist space. But that isn't good ultimately for us, because we're humans as leaders too. We can only control the controllables. And it's also not good for our people, because we're not building the kind of change muscle that our people are going to need now and next, right? So in this hyper change environment, we can't protect our people. We can organize ourselves a lot better. We can provide belief. We can help people trust, and we can provide the platform to do great work. But what we can't do is protect our people. Instead, we as leaders, leadership for me right now is creating movement. We have to create the conditions for our people to move through discomfort. And for us, Pivot Forward, over me, that is about not just about training and communication and the why and all of that good stuff, but it's about giving agency. And that means giving choice. So people change when they have more agency and more choice. And what I mean by that is helping people manage through this on their terms, not maybe taking away the work, not maybe taking away delegating decisions, supporting people to manage through this, putting them at the center of decisions, listening, still giving that all important feedback, even if it might feel vulnerable, it might feel the wrong time to do it. Like, cutting those things off aren't the answer. The answer is to hold folks in this discomfort and help them grow the muscles, a bit like you do when you've got a personal trainer. That's exactly what we need to do now. The actual word for it is the zone of productive disequilibrium. Like, it's
that's easy to say on a Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is. My co-founder Susie, she's an absolute psychology geek, behavioral science. There's a whole school of leadership called adaptive leadership, and it's borrowed from that. So it's this place where we as leaders get comfortable and holding people in the discomfort. And that means giving them opportunity to make decisions. If you as an agency are worried about burnout right now, which every agency leader is, tell that to your people and then work out how you're going to manage that as an organization. One of our clients, they're doing an agency hunt for anything that's slowing them down in Q1, any bureaucracy, anything that doesn't feel like they're being trusted. They're going to hunt it out and they're going to prioritize what they're going to focus on. Right? They are attacking that challenge together. They're giving everybody agency so they feel like they're empowered to work through that together. That's what we mean about giving agency.
That's really interesting. Why? I've done all those things you described, by the way. Yeah. Why, as leaders, do we feel I sort of understand why we want to protect people. Has that changed over the years? I think when I was coming through my career, my bosses didn't really protect me. They put shit on me, and either got it right or I got it wrong, and I got either praised or I got told off for getting it wrong. Has something changed, like in culturally? Is it the agency landscape? Because I think people do protect people and don't allow them to make, is it mistakes? Is it grow? Why is that, Gemma? Have you got any insight on that? Why that actually happens?
I think it all comes back to like our human nature, right? We're all wired a little bit differently. We all lead a little bit differently. So I think part of it maybe comes down to personal choice. I do think there's part of us, again, if you're a people first caring person right now and you are worried, and that's normal, like the world has gone a bit mad, hasn't it? And I say to leaders that I work with that are overwhelmed, worried about their people, worried about that bottom line, worried about all of that, that is really normal. If you weren't, then maybe the opposite is a bit true. I think it's okay to be a bit worried right now. And therefore, then it's okay to worry about your people. And it's okay to think about how you can make their lives a little bit easier. But making their lives easier doesn't necessarily mean taking away decisions, taking away agency. It probably means the exact opposite. It means helping and holding them in that space so that they can grow that muscle and you can all grow together. So you as a leader might be growing because you're finding the line of way of standing on the edge. We call it leading from the edge. It really is doing that at the moment, right? That and leading from your edge as a leader right now might be helping your folks stay in the discomfort. Again, that's not sort of leaving your responsibilities, letting people get on with it. Instead, it's working through stuff together as a team, giving choice, giving agency, listening, and then maybe explaining why you don't agree or why that's not going to work in this situation. We shield people from stuff a lot of the time. We forget our folks are adults with choices and mortgages and children, and we want to protect them, but protecting them isn't necessarily the right thing right now. Right now, it's about being in it together. There's four sort of conditions I think that we need to create and sustain energy and change, or sort of four states or four things to think about.
Come on, share them, Gemma.
One is opening people up to possibility that things can go right and things might go wrong.
Yeah.
The second one is giving purpose. So really understanding why we're doing this right now. It's the bigger picture. Everything that goes into that purpose piece is your why as a company, your values, what we're becoming. Values and stuff aren't there to give certainty. They're there to give confidence that we're doing the right things for the right reasons and that we're going to move forward. It's really then important to give people power. And that's about training, that's about communicating, but that's really also about agency and understanding that change doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It happens sort of in a system and what you experience every day. So it's all well and good saying we're going to be this or AI, we're going to go from this, but that gap again is the reality of the situation and how work gets done and how your values show up and how you lead. And then progress, as I talked about, it's reframing progress from all the outputs and all the KPIs and all of the things that we know we need to get to. But the progress is stopping and pausing as a leadership team. The progress is calling the elephant in the room. The progress is having a difficult conversation. The progress might be getting rid of a toxic high performer, because there's nothing that kills energy in an organization like one of those people. Like, it saps it out every day. So it's a courageous conversation, right? If you have those four things, when you look at possibility, you look at purpose, you look at power, and then you look at progress, you've got a bit of a change strategy there. And those things, again, there's a lot out there about what we should do as leaders. I don't believe in shoulds. I believe in coulds.
Yep.
It's about, these are things that you could do, but you have to find a way to work through it that resonates with you authentically, because people know when you're bullshitting them, to be honest with you. They can see right through that. You have to find a way to work through it authentically as a team. And then find something that works for your business, like your business, the way you operate, things that you value. And again, LinkedIn and Harvard Business Review, everyone can tell you everything you should be doing. It's about finding what feels right and what you can manage through authentically, because that's where your energy will also come from. If you're doing something and preaching something you don't believe in, again, you're leeching energy that you don't need to be. You need to find a way of managing through this that is going to fuel and give you energy.
That's really interesting. I love the toxic high performer, because I think you also have toxic high spending clients. Each of those can just drain the business of morale, and purpose for sure. Gemma, have you got any? Because people love a story. Have you got any examples of where you've seen this work really well in a business, where they've really embraced these things you're describing, and the change has been significant? They've got it right. They've done the things you said, pausing, not trying to rush through the messy stuff, human first, including the people, and what have been the outcomes? Is there anything like you could you'd have to say who they are, obviously, but because people love hearing a good shared story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I worked in a loss-making organization. We were facing a huge turnaround type situation, and we need to do it very, very quickly. Engagement leaking out. It was palpable in the business, as was that financial target and the concern around clients, losing clients, etc. And it's very natural for a leader to come in and a leader to create a plan and start going. It's very natural to rush through all of this stuff. But what we did as a leadership team at that time was to pause, to take the time on how we were going to do this and how we were going to do it to involve everyone in being the change that they want to see. I love that phrase, say it all the time, but that's what we have to do right now. We have to mobilize everyone around this. Everyone needs to feel part of it. We spent some time, we borrowed an idea from Pixar. It's called a notes day, where you sort of sticky up all the different types of things that are holding you back, the barriers, so that everyone feels that they can be part of the change. And then we prioritize the things that are going to make the most difference. Like, again, that's about giving people a voice, organizing around things that really matter to people, like maybe how the building might look if it doesn't feel like it needs to be. And it often comes back again to some of those values values, like the way the values that we say we are and what we are aren't showing up at the moment, and how we need to move from kind of what we've been to what we want to become. And as leaders, when we kind of use that language to say like we're becoming, we sort of give ourselves a little bit of grace and space in doing that, because that way our people can see we're trying. Language is so important when things are changing. Also, things like transparency, super important too, explaining what's happening and why, and sort of stepping forward. So what we did as an organisation is create almost like the rules of the road going forward, a set of team agreements. And I do that now over and over and over with organisations. It's the number one thing, again, that I'd recommend organisations do now, rather than get caught up in the hype of change and complicated things. I go back to a set of team agreements, how we make decisions, how we communicate right now, how we check in on energy and pace, how we support each other. And then we use that to hold everybody accountable from a leadership level right into the middle. And we use it to keep showing up for each other. And we also use it, and when we got it wrong, we can explain it, right? But it becomes a way of building trust. And trust, organizations with high trust are 106% more likely to be more energized than ones that aren't. And that's how you build trust, by doing what you say that you will do. And the results of that, I just want to, say on that, like we're exponential, like, something ridiculous, like 240% growth, like way beyond what we expected, because people could hold on to the change. It was rocky. It felt uncomfortable. Again, we tried to work into this feedback culture where everyone's having to start to do that sometimes, and it felt like sort of sticky, and, but we were all doing it for a reason. We were moving forward together. And you can do that at any size of organization, but you just have to take and invest the time, and the time is so important. The how is just as important, if not more important, than the what and the why.
I love that. The rules of engagement. This is how we're going to operate. Mm-hmm. I knew 55 minutes would not be enough for this evening. I knew it wouldn't. I've got so many more questions that I really want to ask you about it, because it affects us every day. I'm changing my own business all the time, and there's so much more I could ask you. I guess a couple of things, and I don't know, last couple of minutes. Is there any sort of like tools or practices? I love the rules of engagement, but on top of that, I'm a leader, going to go into my agency on Monday. We're into a new month, 1st of February. Anything I can start thinking of or implement from there? Really start building this, and I think the word you use, like the change muscle, like starting to train this change muscle across the teams. What would be your advice around that?
Progress. So I'd ask your teams like what progress feels like at the moment.
Right.
I'd ask our teams to think about that. We don't always have time in the town, like in a town hall or a stand-up to talk about that. But I'd ask each of your challenge each of your leaders to go and have a conversation around what progress feels like, and also what the barriers are, and surface that and work together. But having a conversation each month about progress and reframing progress, and getting everyone to think about what that looks and feels like for them individually, because it might feel like you've not achieved anything, but actually, again, one brave conversation that month could be progress. All of that, like progress is energy, and we have to recognize that when we might be inching forward, like the things that feel hard are usually progress, right? And so
celebrate the small wins.
Celebrating the small wins, but I really mean like really rethinking what that might look like is so important. And then as a leader, asking that question regularly. I love this question again, is what you see that I don't. Yeah. And not guiding the witness, as it were, but what do you see that I don't? Because you as a leader can learn so much from that. You can learn the good and the bad. You probably learn something that you had no idea about that might need fixing, but asking that regularly as a leader, particularly at the start of the month, is a good time to do it, because again, that gives you an idea. And then as a leader, taking a minute to pause and work out what you should prioritize accordingly on the back of that. So those two practices, what you see that I don't, and progress conversations, are a source of energy and a source of focus.
Brilliant. I love it. I think you've just answered the one thing I normally end with, is what's the one piece of advice you'd give? But I think you've given two amazing pieces of advice. Before we finish, Gem, I can't believe that has gone so quick.
So quick.
Is there anything else? You've got like one last thing where you're like, and also on top of those two bits, do this. Is there anything?
I can't stress enough the power of pause. I think it's a challenge. I think people will say, you don't run an agency, you've got no idea how hard that is. I spend a lot of time in agencies and a lot of time working through solutions on what we can do in these instances. Have met a problem we can't solve yet, with a pause is so important. It's a practice that I'm trying to do myself this year. I run a small business, there's just two of us. You have to take the time to pause for so many reasons this year. And I guess it's not advice, it's a challenge. I stand open to being challenged on the reality of doing that, but I do think it's how we ground ourselves. Again, we can get caught up in all the noise, in what we should be doing and what others are doing. Take time to pause, and then also take the time to pause as a leadership team, because that's so important. Reconnecting, having that support. Some leaders out there are, just agency leaders. Some have a team. If you've got a team around you, use it to pause, to ideate as a sense of support. It's so important. It's like the number one differentiator, I think, right now is those that pause and those that don't. It's so important. A little bit of a circuit breaker, and get outside and do it. I'm always going to say that. Get outside, pause
I love that.
regularly.
I love it. My
Completely
takeaways
change.
here are definitely pause.
Yeah.
What do you see that I don't? And what could you be doing?